super excited to be here today. I've heard a lot about these meetings, so it looks like you guys have a great turnout for a Friday afternoon. A little bit about my background. Been in the MSP space over 20 years. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I've worked at 3 different MSPs with a partner at my last MSP. Uh, Exited that company right at 3 years ago and came on board with Cognition360. So a little bit of, like I was always the one on the IT or the MSP side of the house. I was the non-technical person in the room, but have done pretty much anything in the MSP space besides, don't let me touch a server or anything like that. So really heavy on operations, account management, sales, did help run and, put processes and stuff in place for that service side of the house. And now I'm at Cognition. It's great. I get to look at MSP's data every day. I will say I've probably, I don't know, probably seen 400 different instances of ConnectWise. I don't know how many of you guys are ConnectWise shop in here, but that's where most of my background is. With Cognition360, it is reporting for ConnectWise. So hopefully those of you, if you're not in ConnectWise, hopefully you'll still get some insight out of the data and reports that I'm showing you today. Show of hands, just kind of with the button. Is anybody in here already using Cognition? I don't see any. Okay, well, that's great. Show of hands, who is on ConnectWise?
Looks like a couple.
Yeah, hopefully more than one.
No, I actually find it's hard to do the reactions. The
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, got a couple in here.
I actually don't know how to do it. There's somebody raise their hand.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing some more coming in there. Great. So the ones of you, I guess the other ones in here might be on Autotask, Halo. With Cognition360, we do have reporting coming available. We do have development that is in place right now. We're looking at pulling out and doing reporting for other PSAs. Hopefully that's going to be coming in like 2024. We should have more information on that by IT Nation as well. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to share my screen with you, and I am going to kind of walk through what some of these Cognition360 reports look like for you.
And Christy, while you pull that up, before you worked for Cognition, did you use Cognition at your previous MSP?
I didn't. I did not have it available. We had just started talking to Aaron when I decided to leave. I actually got to know Aaron through user groups. I'm a facilitator for a ConnectWise user group and got to know Aaron that way. And so when he found out I was exiting, he was like, Christy, I need you to look at Cognition. And I was like, oh, no, I think I'm getting out of the MSP world, which we all know probably on this call. You don't get out of the MSP world, you just get pulled back into a different area.
Yep.
I saw Cognition. I was pretty amazed. I even said, like, is this just another break age? And he was like, just look at it. And so I looked at the reporting. I was pretty blown away. I was like, somebody's finally figured this stuff out. And it now it is fun. I feel like I'm on the other side of the house now on the vendor side, but I've always loved helping MSPs and just helping them grow and just pointing out different ways for efficiency and just how to grow that MSP. The last company I was at, it was a kind of get the band back together from a former MSP that we sold, and non-competes and everything went away, and we kind of started it with this whole like, we're gonna set up like we're a $5 million shop off the bat, and we're gonna grow it quickly. And we did that. We had a niche in community banking, which is a great niche to be in. They are regulated and have to do what we say. And we already had the relationships there, and so it grew really quickly. And then I actually thought I was going to get back into real estate because that's one of my passions. And now I've been at Cognition for 3 years and actually love it. It's been great. And of course, the acquisition from ScalePad back in February, and love the ScalePad side of the house too. It's great. course, Lifecycle Insights came on about the same time as Cognition. So the two products together just really complement each other in getting you guys the data that you need to kind of run your business, but also give that client data that you need to meet with the client. So
All right. Love the backstory, and we're glad you're here. And I think it always helps when you've got the experience, working and running an MSP, then you kind of translate some of these metrics to how people can use them.
yeah, I'll definitely point out anything that I kind of point out, like in an onboarding or something like that. So with Cognition360 is all Power BI based reporting. So we've got about 150 reports that you get out of the gate. They're already set up for you, in basically all departments of your organization. So you can see here that's kind of set up by workspaces. Finance being where all that profitability information is going to be. We're going to look at profitability based on true labor metrics. We're going to look at, what are those fully burdened rates that you have in the system. So it is one of those areas with onboarding that I'm like, hey, do you have those fully burdened rates up to date? I did learn back in 2021 from my pals over at Sierra Pacific that ConnectWise finally has what's called almost like a super admin, where before a lot of times you didn't want to put your rates in ConnectWise because of sensitivity issues. But after about 20 years, they finally figured out that we need to lock down that member screen so you guys can do that so you can get that profitability out. I'm going to start with the service delivery workspace and just kind of walk through team utilization. Of course, with MSPs, you guys know that it's, your biggest assets. It's also the place where you got to make sure you know what's going on with that time. So for us with utilization, we have our available hours here. Available hours comes directly from the member screen on that member capacity page. Here you can see I'm looking at this, time frame, so you can look at any time frame that you want, and then those available hours will pop into here for you. We're going to then look for any PTO charge codes that you have to pull those out to say this is truly what your staff available hours are. Utilized time for us is anything that goes onto the timesheet. So we really want your time to be in the green over 100%. And as an MSP, and for 3 years, for 20 years at every MSP I was at, I was told, oh, we can't get all of our engineers to get their time in. I'm proved to tell you I've worked at 3 of them, and my engineers had their time in daily, 8 hours a day, and some different just some little tips and tricks that worked for me on getting that time in is I did have a daily huddle with the whole company every single day. As we got bigger, we did break those huddles up, but the engineers had that daily huddle. And one of the first things they had to say on a huddle was, I'm X of 8 hours entered for yesterday. So what I wanted to hear was I'm 8 of 8. Engineers, they're competitive. They like a good challenge. They also have to understand the why. So I always had to be backed with why this was important. We've got to understand capacity. We got to understand when to hire. We got to understand why you're not at that 6.5 hours billable per day. Are you a tier 3 engineer? Are you getting pulled into too many meetings? Are you getting pulled into too many mentoring engagements to be able to pull that time down? Having that 100% of time into your timesheet, super important. I work with a lot of clients today, and they're just putting in, say, billable time, and they're not capturing all the other time. I want to know, what are we spending on meetings? How much educational training is happening? Just to really understand what that capacity is. As you grow, it's hard for a team leader to go to a manager or an owner and say, hey, we need to hire. It's always throwing people at that problem. You got to have the data to back it up, and Cognition360 will give you that data. Realized for us, this is going to be your client time. So we're going to pull out any internal time here to let you see what does that client time look like. And then out of your billable, realize that's basically just going to take out any of that no charge or do not bill for those communication entries and stuff like that.
Christy,
Yeah.
One of my special skills, I think, is asking dumb questions.
No,
But
you ask away. Anybody on here, feel free to ask.
if you look at utilized percent of available, some of these values go above 100. Are we double billing, or how does that happen?
It just means that they've put in more time onto their timesheet than what they truly have available. So if it's someone that's an 8-hour day, it means that they've put in, over that, say it's a week of 40, they've put in over 40 hours onto their timesheet.
Okay.
It's a good thing to to be aware of though, because, if you're just looking at it from a billable standpoint and you've got somebody that's working over 100%, it's a good way to see, are we being overworked? Because a lot of focus, a lot of times is being put on that client time or that billable time. But if they have other expectations and other things that they're responsible for, that's when that number is going to start going up. So like if I'm looking here, I can see like with Lizbeth, she's got 162 hours utilized, also realized all of her time is going towards clients. So 7.5 hours a day seems like a lot, but it could be that she's like an on-site or scheduled out resource. If I see numbers that high, I'm okay. But what I usually want to see is somewhere around the 6. Usually if I see like a remote worker or like a help desk person and they're averaging much higher than that 6.5, they're probably working more like, 9-hour days with everything else that they've got to do, on a daily basis, and just that normal lost time that you have as well. But being able to put it in all of your time, even using like a payroll charge code wrap or something like that, you're able to see what that lost time is as well. And what is that lost time costing you?
And there's a
That,
question in the chat here.
yeah,
One of our attendees is new to their company and to MSPs, and they're kind of asking like just general overview of, I guess, kind of what cognition is and how it connects to ConnectWise. Just like I
yeah,
think we see,
sure.
see the data, but just how are we getting this?
So we have the relationship with ConnectWise, if you're cloud, to basically pull all the data in. So we're pulling every piece of data that you have into a data warehouse, and then all the magic and everything happens there, and then it's pulled over into your Power BI, into the reports. The cool thing about that is we're able to give you audit data as well. So we can actually say, show me every ticket that, went from this board to this board, and how long after it moved to an escalation board did it take to start working those tickets, stuff like that. So people, I get asked a lot of times, like, well, what's the difference in your reporting and say MSP CFO or Bright Gauge? Um, it's truly it's true analytical reporting for your company across all your departments, not just one department. It's also trending data, where Bright Gauge, and I did use Bright Gauge at my last company. It's a dashboarding tool, and it's a great dashboarding tool. But when you try to start using it for true analytical and trending reporting, it just has its limitations. Where we're going to be able to give you, especially from a financial standpoint, which clients do I need to focus on? What clients am I making money on? Why did I lose money on this client? Um, I ran account management teams, and I would have account managers that would spend hour, 2 hours digging into tickets, trying to figure out why we lost profitability on this client, that last month, where we're going to be able to quickly show you that in a matter of minutes. Does that answer that?
And one last question. What about on-prem ConnectWise?
Oh, great question. I didn't touch on that. We can do it with on-prem. It's just a little bit different of a setup. We're going to give you some organizational keys to be able to pull that data in. So we can do on-prem or cloud.
Awesome. That answers the current questions.
Yeah. So that's a little bit on utilization. As you can see here, you have your relative date. A lot of the reports will have like a comparison dates page, the same report. It's just a way for you to say between date filters. So you could say, show me the last week of last year. How much time did we put in during that time period? Every single report in here is going to be about utilization. So it's just different ways to look at your utilization. You can take it all the way down to an hourly labor, for instance. When are we the busiest? When are we putting in our time? You can look at it all the way across your teams to see, I can see with this team, they get busy around that 9:10, they stay busy, and then it drops down. I can't do this for sample data, but like in live data, I could say, show me last week, and then pull it all the way down to an individual technician even, and then look at that individual technician by day, and then even be able to drill into their time to look for, like, say, overlap time. Overlap is one of those things where, we're engineers, we can do a little bit of overlap, a little bit of time working, multiple tickets, but especially with remote, with the way COVID changed the world, I want to see if there's 2 hours going into a 1 hour block. And this allows you to do that really quickly and then to actually drill into the data. All of the reports will have this drill through feature that takes you to that underlying data. So you can actually see what's going on. And then you're going to have all the information and your labor notes. And you've got links to go back into ConnectWise if you need to. So that's a little bit on how utilization works. Next, I usually like to look at efficiency. So once all of our time is going in, now I want to see how efficient our engineers are being. Our efficiency reports are going to be able to tell you, how many tickets are we working per day. So it's not necessarily closed tickets. That's going to be our KPI reporting. Our KPI reporting we'll get to here in a second, but that's where you're going to get a lot of your KPIs around first touch resolution, single tech, that kind of thing. So here I can see that Chet works about 10 tickets per day over the last 6 months. So I've got a really good trend there. And I can see working those tickets in about 37 minutes per ticket. I can also see if those tickets have configs attached and do they have a valid type, subtype, and item. Unfortunately, we don't know if it's a true valid. Did they pick the right thing? It's not sitting at blank or must change. We're actually working with a company, Crushbank, right now to do some more AI type stuff where we're like looking at the notes of the ticket to try to determine what those types, subtype, and items are. So hopefully that's coming in the future for those of you that might not have really good type, subtype, and item yet. Time to first time entry, probably one of my favorite metrics on this page. For those of you that are using ConnectWise, usually that, response is tricked with that auto email. We responded to this ticket. What this is going to show you is truly how quickly are we working tickets after they are logged. So it's time ticket is logged to first time entry on that ticket. It's one of those metrics that I also say put on a dashboard. So any of this information, you can actually pin that visual to a dashboard and get some stuff into a single pane of glass for yourself. Usually I'll say, pin this at 6 months, come up here, pin this at 1 week. So that way you can see those trends. But also if this number starts increasing, and I would say that these are probably too high if it's like your tier ones. I usually want to see that around, 0.5 to an hour if it's your true, first line of response engineers. If that number starts trending up, and on your utilization report, your average, daily billable hours, if it starts trending up around that 6.5, 7. And then we also have reporting for open close same day on a board. So your open close same day report, you can look at that trend and say, okay, my open close same day was at 65 and it's trending down. Putting all those together, those are capacity issues. Those are ways to say, you know what, we're starting to get too heavy on this team. Also throw in CSAT. If you're using a CSAT tool, a lot of times when these things start trending up or down, that CSAT score is going to move as well because your clients aren't getting a response as quick as they're used to. So I work with some clients that, it just depends on the MSP and what you want to be and how, do we want like really tight capacity and we're only going to hire when we get to this point? Are we okay with leaving a little bit of, leadway in that capacity because we're more important about that time to first time entry and that CSAT? Our clients are used to, 15 to 20-minute responses, and we want to make sure that we've got capacity in our staff to meet that criteria. So these are the types of way for you to be able to see that.
And then Christy, if
Yeah.
let's say if we're looking at this and we see that our labor minutes per ticket is like at a reasonable level, but the number of tickets and the average tickets worked on per day is like going up, like it's kind of a clear sign of, hey, we need more people. I think that one's kind of, cut and dry. What about in this example here, you've got Elizabeth, kind of like the outlier, not doing very many tickets, like stats don't look as good.
Yeah.
Is that just like a conversation with that, like for an individual saying kind of what's going on, or is there anything else you can do?
It really depends on the role. Like if I'm looking at if I'm looking at a service team overall, usually what I see is like my tier ones up here, you're working 10 to 15, and then you're getting to like those 7 to 9 tickets, and then it gets lower as that tier level goes up. So you can see like with Lisbeth, she's only working about 3 tickets per day, but those tickets that she's working on are about an hour, almost 2 hours a ticket. It probably is the fact that she's that escalation engineer or she's working those heavier, harder tickets. But it is one of those things like if you've got a new employee and they're working, less tickets in a day and it's taking them longer, being able to see that change, like, okay, that now they're working, 8 tickets per day, 10 tickets per day, and then those average minutes per tickets are going down as well because they're getting trained up into your culture and your atmosphere and with, the overall client. So you can see how fast they're getting to those tickets. Usually on a tier one, I like to see this number, probably closer to somewhere between that 15 and 30. It's like that 80-20 rule. Most of our tickets are, usually about a 15-minute ticket, that kind of thing. It's those password resets, those requests that, they don't take a whole lot of time, which means I can work more of them.
Perfect. That makes sense.
So let's go into some KPI reporting. KPI reporting, like I said, this is the closed ticket report. This is where you're going to get a lot of those single tech, first contact resolution, or sometimes you'll hear first touch resolution. You're going to have those reopen. There is some SLA information in here as well. You can look at this report by board, by customer, by technician, by priority. Great account management report. When I'm onboarding account management teams, I usually will tell them, we have a full workspace for account management, a whole built out TBR, Technology Business Review, or QBR. What I usually say here is sort this by priority and then come in here and pick out your client and then say I met with them 3 months ago, whatever the time frame is. And I'll tell those as account managers, from a priority one standpoint, what was my average time to first time entry? Now, first off, this is confiscated data, so some of these numbers might be a little off, but usually on a tier one, a priority one ticket, I want this number to be super low. My priority fours, I'm okay with it being high, and then my twos and threes, they're probably going to be, somewhere around that 1.5 hour mark, depending on, again, your culture and what you want. But it's a way for you to get in there and see it really fast. So yeah, see, single tech, you can see here what those single tech percentages are. All of our reports will have a report information page. It's almost like a little glossary for you to determine, what do we mean by that field. So like close first contact resolution, it's like, what's the difference there? This is 0 or 1-time entry, where this is truly just one-time entry. This is mainly because of like those alerts tickets and stuff like that close with no time. We do exclude out tickets that are less than 3 minutes. So like if you have a dispatcher putting in time, as long as it's below 3 minutes, or even like an email or communication entry, it's not going to ding those engineers for that first touch resolution. Single tech, same thing. If it's below 3 minutes on one of those entries, it's not going to consider that not a single tech ticket. Reopened, I get asked about that one a lot. It's gone through the closure process more than once, and then it has labor recorded after the initial close. So if it just gets reopened for like a survey or someone saying like, Adam, you're so wonderful and awesome, as long as no time is being put on it, then you're okay. So, time to first time entry, business hours only. So it's not counting if the ticket comes in at 2 a.m. It's just from the count of when your actual day starts, based on in ConnectWise, whenever you have that, what you have that time set as your business hours. Looking at this again from a technician standpoint, you do have the ability, like all the reports, drill through into just your reopened tickets. I always tell account managers, hey, drill into every reopened ticket they had, sort by total time, go into those tickets. That's usually where your problems are. Also great for account management. However you guys are looking at reopened tickets, for service management, from a service manager standpoint, if I got a new employee, I'm looking at every reopen ticket they have for from kind of QR in that tech for the time being, every week, once, then move to a month, to quarterly, just looking for those training opportunities that might be out there. What I love about Cognition is it's just quick. I can just go right click, drill, reopen, and then there's all the reopen tickets under that technician. It is going to have the summary in there for you. I believe the live data now even has the, this one doesn't even have summary for this sample. The live data, if you were to sign up for Cognition, it would have your summary and your labor notes too. So that's a little bit on KPI. Agreement profitability. We have some clients that just sign up with, they just need this report, or they initially sign up, just for this report. So of course here you can see just a summary page. All these other pages have to do with agreement profitability, ways to see effective rate, contribution rate, overall profit margin review. If I'm looking just at managed, I can click on just my managed agreements. I can kind of see my trending over here, how I'm doing across all companies, or I can quickly come down here and just look at it by a company standpoint as well. So if I see a client that I'm not doing well on, I can quickly come in here and see, okay, we're really losing money on that client, not charging them enough. And from here, I can also right-click, drill through into my additions, my invoicing, all the way down to my ticket and labor, straight from this report, and see where all of these tickets are coming from. Up here at the top, more than likely you guys do not have tickets that are 165 hours, but it kind of shows how these hours come into play. You can click on the ticket here. The live data will have your ticket back into ConnectWise as well. And then if you have good type, subtype, and item, this is a very good example of not very good type, subtype, and item reporting. It's going to show you what type of ticket it was. And also right here, who worked on that ticket. So like if you see a ticket that has, say, a lot of hours on it, you could see if it was escalated soon enough. This stayed on a tier 1 too long, that kind of thing. We do have reporting as well that can show like number of hours on ticket by team or by person. So you can see any of those outliers. If like say you had a tier 1 that worked on a ticket, longer than 30 minutes, show me all of those tickets to see if they should have been escalated.
Christy,
Yeah.
when we're looking at this profitability, it was kind of by client. Do we have to configure anything like what our costs are in here, or is that's all coming
Good
from
question.
ConnectWise?
So all the data is going to flow through from ConnectWise. Let's see here. I think I've got this sorted by just one person. Let me reset this. I never know from when I go into our demo what I'm going to find based on, oh, I know what the problem is here. They haven't updated it. There we go. So basically, the way the report works is we're going to pull it by invoice period. So it's going to show how much was billed on that agreement. Your addition cost is going to come directly from those additions on that agreement. So it's going to be like your tool costs. And then your labor is going to be whatever labor is put onto that agreement during that period. And then your labor cost is going to come from that fully burned rate that you have set in ConnectWise per member. So from a configuration standpoint, that is where that fully burned rate is super important to have into your ConnectWise, on that member screen. Now, we do have some partners that are still just like, what, we're too sensitive. We don't want it in there. You can send us spreadsheets and say, here's everybody's rate. Of course, the issue with that is there is a little bit of a manual process there for upkeep. If anybody new starts, we have to know what that rate is. If somebody gets a raise, we have to know what that rate is. You just submit it to support and we get it updated for you. Another great thing about Cognition is, like, let's say that your additions are a little off and you haven't updated them, or you've got cost in wrong, or you didn't put somebody's rate in, or you forgot to. We're able to make business rules in our reports for you, for your reporting, to then take those changes back historically. So if you had an addition, you maybe fat fingered it and put an extra 0 or something, and it's making your profitability come in negative because that addition was $1,000 when it should have been 100 or something. We're going to be able to take it back and fix it, where, in ConnectWise, you fix it in the report and it only will take it going forward. We do have it kind of color coded for you. So you could say, show me last month, show me everywhere where I'm not making money. And then you could just quickly drill into those that you're not making money on. So like, here's one that's, $3,000. Additions look to be, in a good place. If I wanted to see what those additions are, I can just right click and it's going to show me what those invoiced additions were. So I can kind of give a, quick look just to make sure that they are where they need to be. That's usually one of the first places I look if I see something kind of weird going on with someone's agreement profitability or those additions. And then here you can see you just put too much time on it.
When you're working with new users of Cognition, are people surprised by the margins? Like, is it something they knew before? Do you see negative margins fairly recently?
Sometimes they're surprised, especially, a lot of times you'll have like these MSPs will have like these really large, what I call whales, and it's like high revenue. Oh, this is, a VIP. This client is super important. It's a lot of revenue. And I'm like, well, it's a lot of revenue, but you're making 10% on this agreement. And then digging into that agreement and figuring out why. Those are the things that are sometimes surprising. Um, but for owners, sometimes seeing percentage drops, because a lot of times you're just looking at an overall, like, or you're looking at your QuickBooks, or you're saying, okay, well, based on all this, we're at 50% margin on all of our agreements. Well, if you can come in and look and see where you are per agreement really quickly, it's going to point out some stuff. But then you're able to say, okay, why did that agreement drop? Top two reasons that I see tank profitability today. Workstation setups, number one, that are still being covered by agreements. 10 years ago, we could do that, right? Now you might have a workstation setup that's 8 or 9 hours and you're putting it on a $3,000 a month agreement. The number two reason, printers. Printers that, I'll go and I'll see a $2,500 agreement with a 14-hour printer ticket. I'm like, could have bought them a printer and saved yourself some money still there, or still made money on that agreement. And the thing is, when you're on your help desk, or when someone's in a, the engineer, they're supposed to be just fixing this stuff. They're fixing it, they're working. It's hard for you to have eyes on everything, especially as you grow, to see what do I need to focus on. That's where this target hour comes into play. So we pretty much give you a target hour to say, hey, you don't want to go over this target to hit a 50% margin. It's a super long formula that I think our developers put in here so they don't, you guys know we're not making it up, but it's based on a 50% margin, average rate of 60. These numbers are hard coded in, but you could change them. Say, we want a desired margin of 70 and our rate's more like 50. We could change those up for you. But what it does for you is it gives you like a target threshold report. So you can say, like, show me last, I'm gonna have to put in more weeks in here so it'll show me some data. And I can say, show me everybody hitting target. With the live data, you'd be able to say, show me last 4 weeks. Show me everybody that's at a target of, say, 50% or even 80%. And then what that does for you is you're only having to check those individuals out on a weekly basis to say, hey, this person's hitting target. What's going on? Anybody that you select, it's going to show you from a target standpoint where are they going over. And then down here, you can see these high weeks. So catching this stuff when it happens is where the importance comes into play. You want to be able to catch it as the problem's happening, and this report really helps you do that. Let's see, what's some other things in here? Oh, margin review. This is a great account management report, but also it's a way, I get asked a lot, like, well, we just need to know what clients we need to focus on. Where do we need to focus? This report, of course, it's not looking good because I don't have the full data, but you would be able to look at it by your agreement, and you've got this color coded. And usually what I'm saying or telling people is, hey, anything that's in the pink or falling out and in the pink, those are the clients that I want to focus on. So like if I'm looking at Birch, I can see we were doing pretty well and then it dropped. And then you're able to, like, here's one going up and down in data and we're at 30%. I want to know, why do we keep losing money on that client? And then you can just right click, drill through into your ticket and labor, and then you're in there and you're actually going through and looking at every single ticket. You can see back here in June, you had 62 hours. Here's a 10-hour ticket, a 7-hour ticket. Click on that ticket. Of course, you'll have your summary, and then I can see that this was some sort of networking issue.
And then if you find, I think there's one like agile path in there that was like negative margin the whole time. Is it mostly kind of digging in and seeing that, hey, we're just spending too much time on this? Like, is that kind of the most common cause of negative margins?
Sometimes it's a agreement addition issue. But this would definitely point it out. So like if I was looking at Agile Path and I looked at it from a monthly view, I would want to start from a monthly view just to see what do their additions look like. So like if I'm looking at them, I can see it's a pretty good size agreement. I've got about 2,500 in addition cost. One of the things that I see in addition cost as a Like if I see something that's too high. Now, see how this is, of course, an Office 365 agreement, but a lot of times I'll see Office 365 costs in your main managed agreement. Now, in ConnectWise, I always recommend, break out that Office 365 into like a child agreement or something like that. It's really hard to get margin much higher than say 55% or so. And then you're listening to like, the Paul Dipples of the world saying, oh, you can get 70% margin. And I'm like, not if you have Office in there, because it's such a high revenue and low margin agreement. Um, so I don't want that in my addition. The other thing that I don't want to see in additions, which I see a lot, is like what I call a faux labor cost. So it's basically like, we sold this, it's by, we're doing per user, it's $100 cost, we're charging 150 or something like that, where that $100 is labor. I want to see that labor as zero. The only thing that I recommend putting into your additions cost is tool cost only. What tools am I using to run this agreement? And then I'm getting my true labor cost over here. So it could be a multitude of things. It could be the agreement was set up wrong, the additions are set up wrong. Once I figure out that it's not additions, then I know it's labor, and that's when I'm
Okay.
going to start deep diving into that.
But it's kind of
Now,
like easier to get to the bottom of it if you've kind of split things out correctly
yeah,
in ConnectWise. Okay.
yeah. Um, the let's see, you can look at, your top and bottom effective rates. So like if that's something that's of importance to you, I want all of my effective rates above a certain amount, we're going to have that pulled in for you. Also contribution rate. A lot of times I'll tell, clients like, hey, effective rate's important, contribution rate more important. The difference with effective rate and contribution rate, effective rate's just that, we all know it, simple math of this is what we build, less additions divided by hours. Contribution rate, we're actually going to bring in that labor cost for you as well. So you can truly see what am I making per hour on that agreement. I had one client one time say, Christy, my effective rate looks like where it needs to be, but my contribution rate is low. Like what's going on? And I'm like, you got a tier 3 on that agreement? And a lot of times it's, you've got a high resource. I was guilty of it myself. Like we had a lot of managed contracts where we had, on-site, maintenance agreements, once a week, this person's going there. As these people start, moving up in the MSP world and they've moved to a project engineer or tier 3, I grandfathered, oh, they love him. I'm going to keep him on that agreement. Well, it's going to point out real quickly that your profitability is going to be a lot lower and your contribution rate is going to be a lot lower because you have now no longer a maintenance engineer on that as opposed to like a project engineer. So it's those kind of things that you have to go, oh, okay, and being able to see it, individually. Oh, this report here, this is probably my favorite report out of Cognition360. This is one of the reasons I came to work here. I was trying to build this out myself in BrightGauge or other forms and was not successful. So, I was, had my engineers, we got our type, subtype, and item reporting built out. I, went to a room with my top engineers and we whiteboarded it. We got them all figured out, put contests in place to, have them start doing it. And they're like, but why? And I'm like, well, so I can report on it. And they're like, but how? And I'm like, well, I haven't quite figured that out yet. And then I looked at Cognition and I'm just like, it's just here. It's just right here. So this is all of your tickets by type, subtype, and item. And then you can click on a client. So if I have a client that I'm concerned about, I can quickly come in here and see what type of tickets how much labor cost is it costing me on these types of tickets for that client? What are my volumes? What's my labor? And then you have drill through into them. So like if this client, has a lot of cloud or a lot of workstation or even down to the item from an install or a new setup or something like that, this is usually where I see those printer issues. I can't do it in sample data. It doesn't work for our demo reporting, but we actually have the search ticket subject. So even if you don't have really good type, subtype, and item reporting yet, is what I tell folks, you can actually put in any word here, like printer, and then it's going to sort and show you every single ticket that had that word in the summary. So it's going to show, oh, wow, this person had, $3,000 in printer cost. And then you can actually come down here and see, okay, looks like they had most of that all in 1 week. And then you can drill into those tickets and find it. So usually if someone, tanks profitability or has a lower profitability, then you can come into this report, look at just their data, drill into all the tickets super fast, and look and see what those tickets say. You're also going to be able to get your average ticket cost. So if I want to see like what is my average ticket cost across all clients, or with the beauty of Power BI, you also have tons of these right side filters on every report. So I could say, you know what, I just want to see my managed agreements. What is my average ticket cost on all my managed agreements? And then it's going to give it to you. And then you can see it by client as well.
This is awesome. And then we've got about 15 minutes left in the call. Maybe we'll kind of pause here and take some Q&A. Yeah. Feel free to put them in the chat, or pick yourself off mute and ask any questions you'd like about this or about LCI, if you've got questions about that as well. And we've got a question from Mark in the chat about cost. Mark, are you talking about pricing for Cognition360 or some of the costing items within the product? Maybe I said that too fast. I think he was talking about Cognition360. I don't know if we actually advertise this on the website. I was just looking for a link.
The costing, it's based on ConnectWise users. So depending on how many ConnectWise users you have, it's a tiered cost. Mainly, we can figure it out, like if you have this many users, it's probably going to take this amount of support and this amount of data, because we're also housing, that data. I think it's like up to 25, first 25 users, it's about $449 a month. And then it kind of goes up from there. But if anybody's interested in cost, I can definitely get you in touch with like your PDM on the ScalePad side. Happy to show your team a demo as well, or answer any questions, or if you just have any general questions about cognition or just MSP world. I love talking MSP. And I think, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have so many ScalePad products, there's also a discount involved.
For sure.
So
yep.
If you already have, 2 ScalePad products and you pick up a third, I believe that's when some discounts can come into play on your pricing, and we can work with the PDM on that too.
Perfect. And if I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. Maybe
I have one question.
Go ahead, Alexander.
I may have missed some of the parts because I had to run in and out, but I may have, I assume, so I'll ask again. What part of Cognizant integrates with Lifecycle Insights, and how does it function on that side of the playing field, number one? And the second question would be, if you were to sum up in maybe 3 to 5 bullet points, how does Cognizant compare to Brightgauge?
Sure.
Which I heard a lot. I heard a lot of what you said, but if you were to sum it up in 3 to 5 points.
So on the integration piece, one of the, of course, we've been in acquisition mode, it seems like, here lately. There is a full dev team right now that is looking to make integrations into the Cognition360 reporting. They are going to be starting, of course, with those ScalePad products, because we already have the data and we already have the rights to everything. So eventually, you will have, lifecycle insights reporting, backup radar, warranty master reporting, all within Cognition360, and those integrations will be there. We're also looking at all kinds of other integrations, also looking at Autotask, Halo as well. But as of right now, does not integrate. So
yeah, and I'll add to that, to the Alexander. So I've been here, I guess, two months now ish. But that's part of my job as well. Like running product. Yeah. So kind of putting the strategy together, integrating these things. So I'd say, as you're looking at these things, like, we absolutely have a plan to integrate them. But if there's specific things you'd want, like if there's something in the back of your mind, like, I'd love, this data from LCI to be in Cognition, or some of the, margin stuff from Cognition available like in my reports and proposals or something in LCI, absolutely let us know. Like if you want to just send us an email, let us know now. Schedule time with product. We are
Absolutely. I was thinking from a perspective, for any of the managers that run the operations, it's important when how many customer success managers are when you use that integration for the scheduler and you want to get some reporting and some analytics. What are the client success managers doing? How many QBRs are they tackling? What do those metrics looks like? What are stuff like that. So looking at it
Yeah.
from a life cycle insights perspective.
okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and we do have reporting depending on, of course, for us, it's always a data set. So however you're, whether you're doing it by a sales activity or a ticket or something. So I have some clients that are actually even using, type or item to say this was a QBR to be able to track when those are happening. But in our customer reporting, we do have that, and that is something, Adam, that would be great if we could, kind of combine the two to show like when was the last QBR, for this client, or when's the last time this client was. We have just overall client interactions. When was the last interaction with this client?
Exactly. And then if you think about it, if we were to break down the types of meetings that we have inside of life cycle insights, and you have different types of meetings that you can select, and the standard, I mean, you can customize it, but it says a phone call or email, virtual call, and then QBR. Thinking about it from the perspective of, well, what about compliance meetings? Did you have those meetings for compliance, or a meeting around cybersecurity, or meetings just for the QBR? So different types of analytics based on what type of meetings are occurring and what type of technical business reviews are being conducted for our clients.
Okay. And would you want to tie those, like the time spent in those meetings, like to the margins and the overall kind of key metrics that they see in
Absolutely.
Cognition?
Absolutely. It's very beneficial information overall.
Perfect. Yeah, makes sense. Because if we don't do that, right? If you've got all this kind of meeting data over in one tool, then you've got this margin stuff over in the other tool, but we're not accounting for that, then it's a little bit less valuable.
And it's, well, you had this many meetings around compliance or cybersecurity or QBRs. What is the outcome when you look at those metrics? What's being generated? What's the revenue? What's the ROI, and what's being produced?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I think I can't wait for some of these integrations. I think it's going to be awesome. Let's see, your second part of your question, breakage.
3 to 5 bullet points that we can say, because we're currently on breakage, but I'm looking at everything that this is doing, and I'm like, I heard you say a couple of times there's certain limitations on breakage. So my thought is, well, I wonder what else this can do in addition to what's being shown. That how does it compare? That's my thought process behind it.
Yeah, let's see. I look at breakage as a dashboarding tool. Cognition360 is more of an analytical reporting tool, being able to get trending data past 240 days. So you're going to be able to get, 3 years of financial data, or we can actually pull in as much data as you've had ConnectWise. In the beginning, we don't. It's usually about 2 years in service, 3 years in finance, but we can pull in more. Breakage limitations, everything we have is already built out for you. So you're not having to spend a whole lot of time or have like a breakage or a Cognition360 expert, so to speak, to use the reports. Now, I will say it's like any software tool. You are going to have to spend some time in there to get familiar with where the reports are, and even set up some dashboards for yourself and get that information to you. And then it gives you that quick drill through capability into the data. Also, we have what I call our TBR report to be able to see that data quickly. Also, I didn't even get to the project summary report, but we also have full project reporting to be able, I don't know if you've tried to manage projects in ConnectWise, or if you are, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And well, let me just share it real quick.
Right. Building the work plan.
It's not the funnest thing in the world to do on projects. Let me just pull this project page up here. So we have all kinds of project reporting. We also have like capacity planning reporting. This project details report, you can see all your projects in one place. You can look at it just by your project managers really, really quickly, kind of flow through a project meeting to say, okay, um, Jeff, let's look at yours. Mark, let's look at yours, and kind of flow through those. I don't know why my computer's running slow here. Um, a few key factors that I'm always going to point out in projects. Hey, do you have your budget in? Are you keeping up with it? Are you adding on your phases if you have an add-on phase? What's your billable type? Is it actual? We're going to be able to see, like, if it's an actual project and you go over a little bit, I'm not as concerned. If it's a fixed fee and you're starting to go over, very concerning. I want to know what's going on. So you can kind of, lots of information in here. We're going to bring in any status it's on. The live reporting actually has like last ticket note. We're going to bring in your end dates, your actual start and end dates. We have a Gantt chart for you to be able to show you, like, here's my projects that are currently active by start and end date. Resource availability, if you're scheduling out your projects, what has been scheduled, what is somebody's availability. And then you also have this awesome drill through. So I could look at it by phase or by labor. And if I drill into these phases, it's going to quickly show me what those phases are. I can click on a phase, it's going to show me the tickets. I can drill into every piece of this labor straight from here. And now I'm looking at everything, including my labor notes. When was the last time it was touched? What was done on it? So instead of having to finagle through project at a time, and ConnectWise, you're able to really look at this and see it a little faster. So it's stuff like that from BrightGauge being more of like a dashboarding tool. Like I said, I think BrightGauge is great for like that live reporting or having those, great gauges up on your wall, and we can do some stuff like that. We do have some live reporting that we actually created because we had a lot of partners that were like, if you just had this, I could get rid of BrightGauge. So we have what's called Cognition Live to give you that true real-time data, or what I call near real-time. Sometimes it's like 5-minute delays depending on the callbacks of ConnectWise. But it's just I don't know how to say it any better than it's just true analytical reporting to get into your data. And I look at it as, BrightGauge can be pushed out to, say, your whole service team, to give them kind of a dashboard, to give them some truly daily metrics, who's doing what's, when's the last time somebody touched a ticket, that kind of thing, which our live reporting does do. Where Cognition is more, I look at it, it's more higher level management reporting. It's going to be, your C levels, your management, project managers, all account managers, lots of data in there for them. And they're able to get to it themselves really fast. The other thing is, I don't know, I used to use BrightGauge a lot. Of course, I was one of those that was, sitting behind my desk at 8 o'clock at night, getting my financial reports ready for the meeting the next day. And this BrightGauge report that I had built for me that I didn't know how it worked in any form or fashion didn't work or was broken, or my ConnectWise would spin, or, so it's pulling from that data, where this is not going to do that to you. So this stuff is immediate. It's just going to be there and ready for you.
Thank you so much, Christy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Christy, we have one last question in the chat here. All the different reports that you're showing, right? The dashboards, the projects, productivity, all the margins. They're asked about pricing. Like, is that all included when they purchase Cognition, or are they charging per report?
All included. Anything that you saw today was what we consider a canned or core report. And all are included. We actually have some reports that aren't put in as canned reports, like staff profitability, for instance, is one of those that is not canned in the finance, mainly because I'm going to have to meet with you and figure out your OML level before I'm going to give you a staff profitability report, because there's a lot to it that you have to understand. But if you're looking for staff profitability and W-2 multipliers and stuff like that, I can put that report into you and show you how to use it. So that would be an example of it's available. Our thing is, ask for anything you want, because if we don't have it built, we can add it to our list of reports to build. And if it can add to our reports, it's just making it better. All these reports that you saw today, especially a lot of the pages, it's because we had an MSP ask for it, or a new column that was added in or something. It's because they've asked for it over the years to get it in there. So it's Service reporting probably has, I mean, if you need something in service, we've probably got it built. Projects, we've spent a lot of time on projects over the last year, year and a half. We've worked with a lot of like AV companies, especially during COVID with a lot of your, I didn't have to deal with this. I was kind of out of it by the time all the um, issues around procurement happened, and you had stuff sitting out on boats forever. But all kinds of project reporting, procurement reporting. We've got a full new workspace just in procurement even.
Awesome. And there's actually one last question, and then we'll be out of time. If somebody has ConnectWise set up correctly, right, they've done a good job, and then they want to use Cognition, how long does it take until they've got useful reports?
So you're going to go through a provisioning process. That provisioning time is going to take about, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes on your end, just some provisioning steps. It's going to take us about 5 to 7 business days just to get your reports ready. And then everything is put into your Power BI. Everybody does have to have a Power BI Pro license to be able to use Cognition360. That's going to, in the company, if they're going to be in the reports, they're going to need that Pro license. And then we'll need one of those Pro licenses as well. And then we usually have, depending on your size, usually at least 2 to 3 onboarding sessions. Usually I like to take those onboarding sessions and break them up even by department if you're, much bigger than say 40, 50 people. And then from there, it goes into partner success. And then it's just like with any other software tool. How much are you going to use it? Now I'm going to help you set up dashboards because my job is to make sure you're using it. So I've been in operations and finance a long time and had, owners come back from events and sign up for this shiny new tool. And it sat on my books for 6 months and was not used. And it's one of my biggest pet peeves. So I don't want that to happen to any of my partners that have signed up. So I'm going to be on you to be in there and using it. Probably to a point where you're like, okay, I'll set this meeting up with you so we can get in there. But I just know it'll help you. Like the data is pretty insightful. I mean, you're going to see from day one of looking at the data, you're going to see insights. You're going to see stuff that you're like, whoa, I didn't realize that. Whether it's on the service side with, capacity or utilization or the finance side.
Perfect. Well, I think we're right on time. So Christy, thanks for coming. I thought that was
Yeah.
fascinating. And then we'll end it there. And I think next week, I think we're kind of going to go back to LCI a little bit and hopefully bring in some developers to show some features that are coming soon.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks
Enjoy the
for
weekend.
having me.